Dude, Super Bowl ads this year, by the way, integrating social media prior, like having the teasers leading to the commercial. The Tom Brady one won the Super Bowl. Tom Brady still won the Super Bowl somehow, which is the worst. Just for background, he put this black and white photo of him leaving a stadium, which like set Patriots Twitter on fire because they're like, is Tom Brady retiring? And the rest of the world was like, is Tom Brady retiring? Welcome back, marketing nerds of the world, to another episode of HAMYAW. And today we have a very special treat, which is actually part 2 of our interview with the amazing Shenee Howard. We had so much good stuff this episode, we had to break it into 2 parts. What else is new? But let's get right back into it.
Talk to us about No One Really Cares About You.
Oh gosh, yeah. So
because I want to frame this a little.
I care about you
because I do think it trips up a lot of really great writers. Like I know in my programs, a lot of people come and they can't write because they're like, no one cares what I think. And so what's the point if I don't know who I'm talking to and I don't know what I want to say to them and no one cares and they can't even access their ideas. So like, I think that's a separate like content issue. Yeah. And in the case of sales, I think it's distinctly different. So talk to us a little bit about what should they care about? What does it mean no one cares about you?
Yeah, so basically what I mean by that is like when you're a business owner, you have to be a little self-obsessed to do it. I mean, nobody wants to say that.
It's my favorite part of the business.
An online business especially, that's like a personality brand, which I'm assuming that's who you're talking to mostly. You have to have a touch of the self-obsession. So a lot of times what happens is that you're with yourself, you're with your copy for way too long, and you just like lose the plot because you're just focusing on yourself. And like, a lot of times it's like, here are my feelings about this, and this is what I feel like they should do, and what they should create, and what they should build, and how they should feel, and da, 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 da. But really, it's more about what they think they want and feel and experience. It doesn't matter what you think. A lot of times I kind of call it like the messaging funnel. So it's like a funnel. So at the top is like their ideas about what they want, and they're coming to you. So like, for example, if you're, I don't know how I'm going to do the PG version of this. Okay. So like, let's say you're like somebody who helps people get a deeper relationship with themselves and blah, 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 blah. But mostly it's a couple that's not having sex. Like they don't care about like the deeper stuff in there. They want to bone again. So like, that's like the top, right? And then as you go deeper, you care about, and as they invest in you and invest with you as far as like personality and money, you go deeper. I think Brene Brown is a good example of this as well, where, you know,
she wants to bone more. I know.
Yeah.
Hey.
I want that for her.
No, she's good. You can always tell from a speaker.
Yeah, I was going to say, she seems like somebody she's well taken care of. Yeah, but like her brand, it's like, you know, top stuff is like this idea of vulnerability and the TED Talk. And then as you go deeper, she goes in some of the deeper psychology of it and sort of the behind the scenes things that kind of go into it. And so that's really what it means about people not caring about you, is not that they don't care about you, is that they don't care about you yet. And then in order to care about you more, they have to invest more. And so a lot of people, the way they write is that they write with themselves at the top when really there's something else there, and then the inside needs to be more their stuff. Like they have to earn your goodness. You know what I mean? Like they have to earn it. So that's kind of.
Yes. Oh my God. I love this so much. I love it. I'll tell you for a couple of reasons. One, I always put like my bio and my introduction to myself at like the bottom of my sales pages.
Yeah.
And this is exactly why. But as I write them for myself versus for clients, I'll find myself like the bio just gets longer and longer and longer. I'm like, well, I did this, and then I did this, And like, what you have to remember is that these are strategic. Like you need to share only so much as people need to feel safe to buy with you and trust that you can solve their problem. They don't need your whole backstory. And so I think we get insecure. Sorry,
I was going to say, a lot of it is therapy, right? A lot of it is like truly, like I remember just the other day I was looking at a client's copy and I was like, okay, well, let's talk about this first. Like what's going on? Like, why are you feeling like you can't do this? Because it's clear in the copy that you don't feel like you can do this right now. So why? I mean, I swear that's like most of the work. Being a copywriter and a brand strategist is just like therapy, because it always comes out in the copy first where they're unsure because they're like you said, name dropping, or they're doing this, or they're talking too much about their process and they're like, this is how this works. And it's really just like a lack of confidence or not feeling sure.
Totally.
So I think yourself first, and then you do it again. So yeah.
Dude, it's so hard to do for yourself though. That's for sure. Like, you can't, what's that? I love that saying, like, you can't read the label from inside the bottle.
Exactly.
I think we say that a lot here on the show. I think what also frustrates me is that there's a lot of like one sentence advice about how to write about yourself as well, whether it's in launches or whatever. And this doesn't necessarily have to do with launches, but I get this a lot about pages. And they're like, well, somebody told me that my about page shouldn't be about me. It has to be about them. I'm like, okay. But they're also coming to the about page to learn a little bit about you. So like, what is the balance? And it is about, writing about yourself within the lens of what's relevant to your target client, which is to your point, Shenee, and also your point, Margot, is it's just, you have to figure out what's important to the people who you're talking to, with the problems, with the pain points they have now, with the goals, with the struggles, with the burning fire that they need to put out. And I think a lot of business owners kind of miss that part because they're like, objections, time, money, energy, we got here's all the features and here's what you'll walk away with. We kind of forget to get into the audience's head, even though that's like hammered into our skulls from the first ever launch.
Crazy how like that idea is something that's like so central to launching, which is the idea of benefits and features and stuff like that. But that's like the number one thing that gets wrong. And it's because it is like self-centered as opposed to like customer-centered. And then also people have like kind of like a shallow view of like what their target market really is. Like the other day, somebody said this in 2020, they were like, well, they go to Whole Foods. I was like, oh my God. Stop. I need you to stop. It is 2020. This can't be the advice that you're still getting about your customer. But it is still this idea that like customers are about like shopping habits and like stuff like that. And they like this versus like, here's what they really fear. Here's what's like really scary to them. This is why they Googled to get to you. Like stuff like that, that's going to actually help you. That's what happens with launches a lot.
I also think that a lot of people, like on the flip side, in our circles, have really rich data that they don't know how to translate into copy.
Yeah.
And so I think that also, and people will be like, no, it's really their fear of being alone and belonging. And then that's why I really love, Shenee, your model, your funnel, because it's like, no, they want a bone. Like, let's start here. Don't open with loneliness.
And you always
don't open with loneliness.
Don't open with loneliness. And if you are going to open with loneliness, you need to apply it to something. Yeah. So it's like loneliness in that I want a bone. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to go to bed alone. You have to do that sort of like next step where you get that data and the data is like raw and then you kind of apply it to very specific situations, which again is a big launch issue, is that like launches a lot of times, and I see them happen, they're so abstract, and I always call it the Simon Sinek problem, even though I believe in his work, but because like
Margot's favorite,
the why stuff is like so hammered into us, is that I think people have turned that into the focal point of brands, which is like a huge mistake because like people's caring about the why is limited. And also his intentions with that was like for a corporate environment. So like if you're an individual who like is like selling like garden supplies, they don't really give a fuck why you like garden supplies. And so that happens a lot with launches as well. They're like, and my big mission and da, da, da. And I was like, you're speaking to the wrong crowd with that. So I think that's the Simon Sinek problem that's happened a lot in the last like 8 years. I'm just like, well, I don't care.
Yeah. And it provokes an existential crisis. People are like, what do I care about? But I also love my family and I love my cat. And I'm just like, this is not in your sales page. Get it out of your launch.
I know.
Like, I'm glad you love your cat. Put that in your content.
And then my program so my cat can live a better life.
Right. I mean, I do. I mean, honestly, I do. My dog. Like, this is all for my dog.
All for Alfred.
His chiropractor appointments.
Oh my God. Well, okay.
She's not kidding, by the way.
This is also a really great, I think, PSA for creative allies. I mean, if your team is just you, if your team is 5 or 10 people working on something, if you're doing something for your own business or you're on the team of someone's business, it's really hard when you're in it to see the forest for the trees, which is why I think creative allies end up being really helpful because they're the ones that can smack you in the face with your blind spots. Like, I'll use myself as an example. This is mortifying to me, but like it happens. Like I've been working on a new sales offering for my one-on-one service and I sent it over to Hillary. And I was doing the thing, Shenee, with the funnel where I was like, people just want to be themselves in their copy. And Hillary's like, they want raving fans in a giant platform.
Right?
Oh, yeah. I like, missed that. I like missed that completely.
Yeah. It's especially prevalent for, I would say, probably you guys' market especially. Hillary knows I'm always side-eyeing sort of like the crowd where it's like the people who get mad at me because I'm just like selling every email, and they're just like, but that's like out of integrity and we want to do this and and so like that crowd often struggles with that specific thing where it's like they want the deeper meaning to be built into the work, but there's like no space for it at that. You know what I mean? And it happens to us all. Like I always write a copy where it's just like, oh man, this is just for me. And then I write it again for when it's somebody else, you know?
That's a great
I do love a good trash draft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
These ideas that you need the why, that you need this deeper meaning and mission in order to stay in integrity. When really what you're doing is solving people's problems. You don't need a big philosophical reason behind why they're solving the problem. You can introduce them to that philosophical reason once they're part of your world. But in terms of like, do they know that they're lonely? Do they know that they, struggle to be themselves in their content? Like in Margot's example. Yeah, but at the same time, like they have a really specific goal in mind that you want to make them a big promise and then build everything out from there. And I think that's where a lot of people get lost because they're like, it has to connect to them on a soul level. Yeah. I'm a heart-centered entrepreneur. In order to get that across, what I need to do is just like create a poetry around it. And what that does is create really wonderful sales emails in which you get responses saying, this is a great sales email, but you don't get sales.
Every time. Every time.
I talk about this all the time, especially on Facebook. This happens a lot where I have this line in one of my pieces of copy where it's like, you write all of these long, like in-depth content pieces and people are like, go girl, and you're awesome, but nobody buys it. It's like this idea. And people really love that line because it happens all the time. Yeah, people are fairly prolific, inspirational. People like them, people follow them, but they don't make sales. And it's because of this reason where they're not wrapped up in a problem. And they also haven't formed a relationship with those people where it is about their problems. It's just about their enjoyment of them. And it's hard when we're like in this kind of influencer age and people don't realize that they're being influencers. They think that they're being businesses, but they're actually being influencers.
Oh, yeah.
And like the other day, I was talking about somebody like this who big platform, all this stuff. And she's like, I can't sell anything. And I was like, yeah, well, like, I mean, you could probably get an ad with like this bar or something, you know what I mean? Because it's like the relationship with the audience is not like that. And you see it all the time.
Transactional
Stories with like an Instagrammer who has like 1 million followers, that story we all saw, and like she couldn't sell anything. And I was like, well, they have no reason to buy from her, so why would they? So
yeah, the clothing's not solving a problem.
Right.
The clothing's not showing you a why. And I remember looking at the line. It was fine, but it was a bunch of like Yeezy knockoffs. And not exclusively, but it was just like athleisure. And there are 1 million brands doing exactly that. And
and it's like the brand thing too. It's like, what is your brand about? Who are you about? What are you doing? Yeah. And it's so easy to just create content and just like that people will respond to, which I think people don't understand. Like they think that response means that it's a brand and that they're doing something, but really you're just engineering response. It's like my whole problem with like viral content and like the peanut thing, like when they killed Mr. Peanut, I'm like, yeah, that's great now. But what happens in like 2 years when there's no Mr. Peanut? You know what I mean?
Why would you do?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So as this relates to launching, I think it's a really nice point about building that relationship over the long term with your audience. I think you called it earlier a profitable relationship. I'd never heard that before, but I really like that framing of I'm not just a thought leader. Thought leadership is part of the platform, but like I sell things too. All right. So, wow. Words. We're at our like hour mark.
It's been my entire day. Go ahead. Take your time.
Awesome. All right. Well, you guys, if you like this episode, please like it below, subscribe to our channel, and share it with your friends. I am Margot Aaron.
I'm Hillary Wise.
And our guest, Shenee.
Yay! Thank you.
You can find Shenee anywhere on the internet that you look up, Hey Shenee. She just appears. I love that. Please look her up, tell her hello, at her a lot, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks. Thanks for watching.
Bye, guys.